Today we're going to be focusing on the myth of Perseus and Medusa. We're going to have some background information and then the myth, and there will be a Google form to complete at the end. So please follow along, and remember that at any time you can go back and look at this slideshow and listen to the explanations again. Be sure to pay special attention to the vocabulary. So for this myth, we're going to be discussing Hermes, the messenger of the gods. We're going to be talking about Medusa, and she is one of the three Gorgons, sisters with horrible faces and writhing snakes instead of hair, just like on the first slide, there was an image. Athena, we come across Athena once again, the goddess of wisdom and war. And then once again, we come across nymphs, female spirits of nature. So we talked about those in the other myths, and we also talked about them in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So here's some background information for Perseus and Medusa. So now you're going to notice this is a totally different image of Medusa, but notice she has an ugly face. And she has snakes for hair. And here's Perseus. And look at his shield. And you're noticing that it's shiny. This is really important. And see the wings on his helmet? He also has winged shoes. So this is an image that you can have in your head when you're listening and reading along to the myth. So the monster is Medusa. The hero is Perseus. The battle, this is a little background information like a summary. The hideous Medusa has snakes for hair, terrifying tusks, and a face that turns anyone that looks at it into stone. To please his king, warrior Perseus agrees to slay the beast. Wearing a helmet of invisibility, so that helmet he's wearing makes him invisible. He sneaks up on Medusa. She's asleep. But one gaze at her face and Perseus would be a statue. So he looks at her harmless reflection in his shiny shield and beheads her. Victorious, Perseus flies off on winged sandals. So that's a summary. So I just want to show you where this myth is located. So it starts off in the sunny island of Seriphus. So now if you follow this arrow, you're going to notice that Seriphus is spelled differently, but you're going to notice that it is an island. Okay? Here's some more images. Here's an image of Medusa with the snakes for hair, and she's not pretty. You're going to notice the winged shoes, and then this is not the same as the image in the colored cartoon picture, but this is just another thing. You can have a picture in your head of a shiny shield that it almost looks like a mirror. Important vocabulary needed for this myth. Ruthless, having or showing no pity or compassion for others. Desolate, deserted of people and in a state of bleak and dismal emptiness. Like maybe like a scary haunted mansion or a desert. It's deserted of people. There are no people around. Desperate. Desperate means feeling, showing, or involving a hopeless sense that a situation is so bad as to be impossible to deal with. And wriggling. Twist and turn with quick movements. So these vocabulary words are important, and you may need them for your Google form, and you also need to understand what they mean for the read aloud. So here we go. On the sunny island of Seriphus, a bold young man named Perseus lived with his mother Danae. The ruler of this island, King Polydectes, wanted to get rid of Perseus so that he could force the young man's mother to marry him. Being both ruthless and sly, the king soon came up with a deadly plan. He challenged Perseus to bring him the head of Medusa, a horrible Gorgon. This scaly, winged monster had a woman's face and a mass of hissing snakes for hair. She was so hideous and frightening, that anyone who looked at her was turned to stone. Perseus set out from Seriphus, wondering how he would ever accomplish such a dangerous mission. Suddenly, the goddess Athena appeared. "Take my shining shield and use it as a mirror when you attack Medusa. That way you don't have to look at her," she said. Soon after that, Perseus turned and saw the god Hermes walking toward him. "I will lend you my strong sword," Hermes said. "Everything else that you need is with the nymphs of the north. But to find them, you must visit the Gray Women. Only they know the way to the nymphs' land, and it's a secret they carefully guard." After many days of travel, Perseus reached the dim and desolate place where the three women lived. These wrinkled old women were sisters who shared a single eye and took turns looking through it. Perseus hid behind a rock and watched them pass the eye back and forth. At just the right moment, he jumped out and snatched the eye. "Gray Women," he shouted, "I have your eye. You won't get it back unless you tell me where to find the nymphs of the north." Desperate for their eye, the sisters quickly told him the way. Journeying on, Perseus came at last to a beautiful and peaceful land behind the north wind. It was here that the nymphs of the north lived. The nymphs greeted him warmly and gave him the three things he needed: a pair of winged sandals, a cap of darkness that would make him invisible, and a magic sack into which he could put Medusa's head. Perseus tied on the sandals and flew to the island where Medusa dwelled. Down below, he saw stone statues of men scattered everywhere. Ooh, this sounds like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Perseus shuddered and put on the cap of darkness. Remembering to look only at the reflections in Athena's shield, he found Medusa and hovered over her. With just one stroke, he cut off her horrifying head. He stuffed it, wriggling snakes and all, into his sack and flew away. When Perseus returned to Seriphus, that's the island, he learned that his mission had been a wicked scheme to get rid of him. Perseus went at once to Polydectes' throne room. As he pulled Medusa's head from the sack, he closed his eyes and shouted, "Here is the head you wanted." The king looked at the head in amazement and was instantly turned to stone. So, please go to the Google form in your classroom to complete the questions related to this myth. If you need to go back and re-listen to the story and instruction, please do that. Please use the text to help you answer the questions. Use text evidence to support your answers. It is loaded in the Google Classroom. Please go back and forth to check your work.